General Hospital spoilers tease that Natalia pressed her cold fingertips against the rain-slicked glass of her penthouse's floor-to-ceiling windows, gazing out over the glittering expanse of Port Charles. The city's lights danced on the wet streets like embers in a dying fire, mocking her with their vibrancy. She had once reveled in days like this, when the storm outside mirrored the tempest of her own ambitions. But now, the downpour simply underscored her isolation. Everything she had built, every secret she had guarded, had come crashing down like the torrential rain outside. The genesis of Natalia's current fury could not be pinned to a single moment, but rather an explosive collision of betrayals. When she had first fallen in love with Sonny Corinthos, it had been a whirlwind romance charged with passion and the promise of redemption for both of them. Sonny, the hardened mob kingpin with a heart wrapped in barbed wire, had opened his fortress of solitude to Natalia's warmth. She, a woman of secrets and carefully constructed facades, had faltered under the weight of his fierce devotion. But that devotion had fractured beneath the strain of their hidden pasts. Her ousting from Deception, the media powerhouse owned by the Courtemain family, had been the first salvo in what became a relentless barrage. Brooke Lynn, Tracy, Lucy, and Maxie, the very women Natalia had once considered kindred spirits, had turned their backs on her the moment her history with Cyrus Sidwell was exposed. The revelation that her marriage had been one of convenience and manipulation, that she had willingly aligned herself with a man whose reputation reeked of violence and subterfuge, had shattered the fragile trust she had painstakingly forged. At first, she had tried contrition. She had knelt before them, voice trembling, beseeching them to see beyond the headlines, beyond the sins of her ex-husband. She had argued that she had left Sidwell years ago, that her heart now belonged wholly to Sonny, that she had sacrificed everything to build a life of honesty. But when tears were met with cold disdain, she realized the futility of regret. The damage was done. Her reputation was irreparably stained. She remembered the night she confronted Brooke Lynn in the vaulted atrium of the Deception building, rainwater streaming down the glass ceiling above. Brooke Lynn's icy glare had cut deeper than any blade. "You betrayed us," she had hissed. "You betrayed me." Natalia's plea for forgiveness had been swallowed by the roar of thunder. In that moment, she saw the contempt in Brooke Lynn's eyes, the contempt that mirrored her own mounting self-loathing. And then came Sonny's exodus to Los Angeles with Carly. Natalia's heartbreak was visceral, a living thing that gnawed at her chest. She found out through a flurry of press releases and paparazzi snapshots, Sonny walking hand in hand with Carly, the woman whose memories of him predated Natalia's, whose familiarity perhaps offered him a sense of safety Natalia could not. She watched the images on her laptop, Sonny slumped against Carly's shoulder, pale but determined before surgery, Carly's tender hand smoothing his hair in the recovery room. Each frame was a dagger. Sonny's departure had felt like a judgment. Not because of her deceit, though that sting was raw, but because he had chosen Carly with such resolute clarity. He had ended things with Natalia not with the tenderness of heartbreak, but with the cold expediency of a business transaction. He could claim honesty, as he no doubt had to his own tormented conscience. "I deserve a clear conscience with the woman I marry." Yet Natalia knew the truth. He had wanted legitimacy, a public narrative that cast him not as a mobster, but as a man redeemed by true love. And in that narrative, Natalia was the inconvenient variable. The phone call between them had been brief and jagged. Sonny's voice, usually so commanding, had cracked with restrained emotion. "You made your bed," he had said. "Now lie in it." Then he had hung up. The finality of the click echoed in Natalia's mind like a judge's gavel. In the days that followed, a dark resolve crystallized in Natalia's heart. She would not slip into oblivion while Carly reclined by Sonny's hospital bed. She would not become another rumor in the corridors of power. She would reclaim her agency and, in doing so, destroy both Sonny and Carly. She would exact a vengeance so thorough that no trace of their renewed love could survive. Yet, as she knew all too well, passion was not enough. She needed leverage. And that leverage lay in Cyrus Sidwell, her ex-husband and the man whose underworld reach made Sonny's own network look like child's play. Sidwell's criminal empire thrived on whispered alliances and blood-spattered bank accounts. She had severed ties with him years ago, had vowed never to use him again, but desperation made strange bedfellows. Their reunion was arranged with clandestine precision in the back room of the floating rib, the muffled jazz from the bar drifting through the walls like a funeral dirge. Sidwell's presence was a study in contradictions, impeccably dressed, every hair in place, yet the darkness in his eyes was alive and hungry. Natalia slid into the booth opposite him, every muscle tense. "Cyrus," she began, voice low with equal parts fear and determination. "I need your help." He raised an eyebrow, swirling the scotch in his glass as if measuring her worth. "You want me to ruin a man's business? Kill a woman's reputation? You do realize risk comes with a price." Natalia leaned forward, her palms flat on the table. "I need Sonny and Carly gone. Permanently." Sidwell's thin lips curved into a smile that did not reach his eyes. "I can do that," he said. "But you know what I want in return." Her breath caught. The implications of returning to Sidwell's bed were as unsettling as they were inexorable. Nevertheless, she nodded, steeling herself. She would sacrifice whatever nobility remained to see her vengeance fulfilled. Plans were set in motion with cold efficiency. Sidwell dispatched an operative to Los Angeles, an ex-soldier with no qualms about working for an organized crime lord. Under cover of darkness, the operative infiltrated West Side General Hospital, armed with false credentials and a lethal syringe. His mission: administer a potent toxin into Sonny's foreline during surgery, ensuring death would come under the guise of a medical complication. Back in Port Charles, Natalia monitored every development from her apartment's encrypted feed, her heart thundering in her ears. The image of the operative slipping past security was a silent triumph until it unraveled. A misrouted police scanner transmission tipped hospital security, and an alert was issued. Carly, sitting in the dim light of the OR observation room, caught wind of the alert on a nurse's wrist radio. Instinct honed by a lifetime of surviving in Sonny's orbit propelled her into action. The ensuing confrontation in the hallway outside the OR was swift and brutal. Carly tackled the operative, narrowly avoiding a lethal injection. The man, stunned at being overpowered, dropped the syringe and reached for a concealed weapon. Carly disarmed him with one fluid move born of self-defense training acquired long ago. As security officers cuffed the man, he spat Natalia's name and muttered Sidwell's, sealing their complicity. The operative's capture was broadcast by local media, and whispers of Natalia's involvement spread like wildfire. Mortified by the public spectacle, Natalia confronted Sidwell in a panic. He met her fury with practiced calm, promising to rectify the embarrassment. But the taste of failure bittered her determination. She could not rest until Carly and Sonny were out of reach. Thus, she devised her next move, an assault on what had once been her pride and joy: deception. The company's gleaming headquarters on Bleasdale Avenue was a symbol of power, a testament to the ingenuity of Brooke Lynn Quartermain and her board of directors. Natalia had once sat in those boardrooms, crafting marketing strategies and philanthropic campaigns. Now she sought its downfall. Natalia issued an ultimatum to Sidwell: finance her takeover of deception, or the company would burn. She delivered the demand through Sidwell's consigliera, the words etched in digital ink on a screen. Sidwell's resources were vast. A strategic influx of capital could indeed give Natalia majority control. But it required her public reinstatement as a board member, a concession that disturbed her pride and threatened to expose her as a corporate usurper. Under cover of night, Sidwell orchestrated a financial arrangement that transferred substantial shares into Natalia's name. A notarized digital contract solidified the agreement, binding Natalia to resign her pending divorce from Sidwell and remarry him in a matter of legal formality. The wedding would be brief, perfunctory, a facade to cloak her scheme. Natalia signed the papers in the sterile glow of her home office, her reflection on the laptop screen pale and haunted. Each signature was a step deeper into her own abyss. Yet the promise of seeing Deception's pristine edifice toppled in flames drove her hand without hesitation. The plan unfolded on a moonless Thursday. While Deception's evening staff dwindled, operatives planted incendiary devices in the basement electrical conduits. The devices were timed to detonate at the height of the company's after-hours soiree, a charity gala hosted by Brooke Lynn in hopes of raising funds for the Port Charles Children's Foundation. As the gala's guests mingled beneath crystal chandeliers, the first explosion thundered through the basement, severing power to half the building. Panic screams ricocheted off marble floors as the lights flickered out and emergency sirens wailed. Smoke swiftly filled the corridors. Brooke Lynn, Maxie, Tracy, Lucy, and their colleagues worked in tandem to evacuate staff and patrons, their leadership a testament to years of camaraderie and crisis management. Yet above the chaos, Natalia watched via a satellite feed in her penthouse, her lips twisting into a triumphant smile as the flames devoured the lobby. She raised a glass of champagne in silent salute to the destruction of a world that had rejected her. In that moment, she believed herself unstoppable. The aftermath, however, was far more complicated than she had anticipated. Law enforcement descended on Deception with subpoenas and search warrants. The fire marshal declared the blaze suspicious, citing accelerants and multiple points of origin. Alongside the criminal investigation into the hospital attempt on Sonny's life, authorities began piecing together Natalia's involvement. The public revelation of her crimes sent ripples through Port Charles society. Headlines blared her betrayal, Deception in ashes, corporate arson suspected, Natalia Rossi's fall from grace. Carly and Sonny, though still convalescing, found themselves drawn back together by their shared trauma. The Corinthos mansion, once a symbol of their wealth and power, now served as a sanctuary where love was tempered by the specter of Natalia's vendetta. Brooke Lynn, Tracy, Lucy, and Maxie rallied to preserve Deception's mission. Fundraisers were organized, legal defenses mobilized, and the public relations team worked overtime to reassure stakeholders. Through sheer determination, Deception not only survived but emerged stronger, its phoenix-like rise from the ashes a testament to collective resilience. Yet for Natalia, each victory by her enemies was a fresh wound. Sidwell's promises of support faltered as law enforcement scrutiny extended to his organization. He retreated into the shadows, his resources strained by simultaneous investigations on two coasts. Natalia realized too late that she had sacrificed more than she had gained. Her alliance with Sidwell had granted her power, but at the cost of her freedom and her soul. Now, isolated in her penthouse, Natalia reflected on the wreckage of her own making. The city she once admired lay cracked beneath her feet, son and daughter-in-law estranged, once close friends turned enemies, a corporate empire scorched, and two people she had loved more than herself stronger than ever. And worst of all, she faced inevitable reckoning, indictments for conspiracy to commit murder and arson, a trial that would lay bare her darkest deeds. In the hush before dawn, Natalia lifted her gaze from the desolation. The storm had passed, leaving behind a fragile calm. Though her world had fallen into ruin, she felt an ember of defiance still glowing within her. She knew her story was far from over. For fans of Port Charles and viewers of General Hospital, the legend of Natalia Rossi's revenge had only just begun, a saga where love and hate intertwined, and where redemption remained plausible, even as the courts closed in. As the first pale light of morning crept over the horizon, Natalia closed her eyes and whispered into the silence, "This is not the end." And as the city awakened below, unaware of the storm's aftermath, she prepared for the next chapter in her epic, unforgiving war.